All right, man. So coming back, here we are. I was not going to give you all graphics and all of that good stuff for all of these players. That would have took me forever. Y'all go get these names and y'all go like it, man. But we're going to talk about it. All right. So the first two names on here were the highest dollar acquisitions of the offseason, being our two starting guards. Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. Up to this point in the season, I believe that the acquisition of these two very large human beings has been nothing short of an absolute A+. Have there been gaffes? Have there been pressures? All of course there have. But what these two have allowed us to have is a competent offensive line, and beyond that, what it has allowed us to do is get a good look at our quarterback, at which at that point we get to look at and evaluate the talent of our other players. Last year, with Bryce Young getting slaughtered and sacked so many times per game, it was hard to evaluate the talent that you had around Bryce Young when he didn't even have time to get the ball to those guys. Now, of course, we know that no, they were not all world guys. Yes, we needed to upgrade. We still need to upgrade this season, but we were not able to properly see how those guys would perform if the quarterback that they had throwing them the ball actually had time and actually had a manageable pocket to actually get the ball to them in a timely and efficient manner. So we didn't have that. Fast forward to this season, whether it be Bryce Young, whether it be Andy Dalton, our quarterbacks have had just about all the time in the world throughout this season to get the ball out. And even though we are not stacked with talent on the boundaries at wide receiver or even at tight end, with a large crop of rookies, we've still been able to have a relatively effective offense and a much better passing offense this year than last year, because that offensive line is holding up just so much better than it had been in the previous year. And the main reason for that being is those two big men on the inside of Robert Hunt and Damian Lewis. So for no other reason than that, I have to say that those were unequivocally A+ acquisitions. Those guys have been great for this team. Robert Hunt just seems to 1000% embody keep pounding. He seems to be a guy that the fans have taken a huge liking to, and hopefully he's going to be around for a long, long time protecting Bryce Young, man. So moving on, the third lineman that was brought in over this offseason was an acquisition from the Green Bay Packers, that being Yash Nyman, who was supposedly brought in to be the swing tackle, the offensive lineman that could step in and fill a role for, I guess, whomever would get hurt off the offensive line. But primarily, if either one of the left or right tackles were to get hurt, this would be the guy to step in and have that play. I believe Yash has only appeared in one game, and that is when Taylor Moton went down for a bit, and it was not pretty whatsoever. And I believe the Carolina Panthers deployed at least about 10 million in guaranteed money to this guy for him to come in and not play very much at all. For what we paid him to be, that is exactly what Brady Christensen has stepped up and excelled at 1000% this season, playing just about every single position on the offensive line and excelling at all of them. For that reason, this guy, Yash Nyman, is 100% expendable, except if you don't believe that you're going to be able to hold on to all of this talent that you have on the offensive line right now. And even with me saying that Brady Christensen has stepped in and been better, a guy like Chandler Zavala, who struggled in his rookie season, has even come in and been incredible. So they've even elected to have that guy step in and play over Yash Nyman at times. So at this point, I have to say that this was 100% just a failed acquisition, somebody that hasn't helped us whatsoever. And with a future outlook, I don't see exactly how he'll help us at all in the future, because we're going to re-sign Brady Christensen because he's 1000% too valuable to not re-sign. And with him being so versatile, that makes this guy expendable. So basically, we shouldn't have signed him in the first place. So this acquisition is unfortunately an F for my man Dan Morgan. So then we move on to Jadeveon Clowney, the OG coming in, supposed to be rejuvenated after having a non-sack season last year in Baltimore, to be a force on our defensive line as an outside rushing edge linebacker. Unfortunately, with the injuries that have been plaguing our defense and our team altogether this season, DJ Wonnum, the other defensive lineman that was brought in to rush opposite of Clowney, has missed about, I believe, 8 or 9 games, leaving Clowney on an island to be doubled or focused on just about by all the other offensive coordinators and offensive line coaches, just being able to funnel all of the attention to his side, and Jadeveon Clowney being on the other side of 31. It was at first a struggle for him to be an impactful edge rusher because there was no other guy that could get to any pressure. But through all of that, he continued to push. He's got more pressures than anybody. He's our sack leader, and even with all of that attention being driven towards his way, he still found a way to get to the quarterback. And since Wonnum has been back over these past 2 weeks, we've been able to see just how impactful he potentially could have been throughout the earlier portion of the season if he just would have had a competent pass rusher opposite of him. So I am not going to down him because of injuries to other players. I believe that I've seen enough to know that Jadeveon Clowney is still an impactful edge rusher if he has somebody that can take a bit of attention away from him on the other side of the line. So I am going to call this a B, all things considered. So shout out to Clowney. Now, DJ Wonnum, we've only had him for about 2 games, and these have been the best 2 defensive games we have played all season, bar none. He was out for an extended period after needing multiple surgeries in the offseason on a quad, I believe so, having multiple setbacks, blood clots, all of these things go wrong in the offseason, preventing him from getting back on the field. But since he's come back, you can see that is somebody that has a new look on life and that is just happy to be on the field and is playing his heart out every single down. He's come back and immediately he's gotten a sack in each of the games that he's been on, had multiple pressures, and like I mentioned in my last point, he's allowed us to see just how impactful that Jadeveon Clowney could be if he has somebody as competent as DJ Wonnum rushing from the other side, man. So like I said, I haven't seen our defense be able to swarm the opposing team's quarterback this way at all off season. I'm seeing linebackers being able to get home because of the pressure and the pocket collapsing because of the edge players collapsing the pocket as well as the interior players. I am just seeing a completely new defense. And the catalyst for that is none other than the guy that is just able to also put pressure on the quarterback. So for that reason, I can't give him an A because he has not been here for majority of the season. But he has 1,000% been excellent in his short stint so far. So I have to at least give DJ Wonnum a B plus for his efforts so far for my Carolina Panthers. Okay. Next, we have Deontay Johnson, man. So this one is, I don't want to say it's tricky. Honestly, I was very excited about the prospects of a receiver as talented as Deontay Johnson. I was excited about what he brought to the team or could potentially bring to the team, knowing that he had 1,000 yards with the bones of Ben Roethlisberger, that he had other seasons where he had 900 yards, where he had been an all-pro returner. He was a guy that was shifty. He could get open, and one thing that we didn't have in our receivers last year was separation. One thing that Deontay Johnson could do is separate. One thing that I was not able to anticipate whatsoever, because I was not completely familiar with Deontay Johnson outside of actually being on the football field, was the attitude and the just the weight and the tension that he would bring to the team with his anger and his discomfort with the offense or whatever was going on. I went to multiple games earlier in the season, and one thing that I noted, I tweeted about this, I would always say it. Deontay Johnson's body language is some of the worst shit I've ever seen in my life, y'all. He pouts, he moans every single time the ball wasn't thrown to him, and I don't want to hear anything about good players want the ball. Bro, he ain't Randy, y'all. Like that like bro, that ain't DK. Like bro, he ain't him. So let's not give him that much. Like he doesn't get that benefit of the doubt. So Deontay Johnson, if he was that demonstrative on the field for millions and millions to see, I can only imagine what he was like towards a young, soft-spoken guy the likes of a Bryce Young, knowing that his performance depended on him. I can only imagine that locker room was very, very toxic, and him going as far as saying that I can't play every position. This guy just eventually he showed to be a cancer, a malcontent, and somebody that we could just do better without, and somebody that we've seen immediate prosperity with this offense now that he has been ejected from it. I can only say that this was a C. Deontay Johnson undoubtedly was the best wide receiver that we had on this offense this season. I don't want to sit up here and cap and lie and downgrade the man for his abilities. The man is a hell of a football player, but he was not excuse me he was not a good match whatsoever for this team. His attitude was not set to be for a team that was in development mode, a young and up and coming team. Honestly, I'm just not sure who the hell this guy thinks he is. So we were better off without him. But for what he was able to provide for Andy Dalton in the win and in the most exciting game of the season, and we were able to get a draft pick for him, I guess I have to give this a C. I'm close to saying it was an F, but Deontay Johnson was a good football player, but I do not like what he did to my football team. So it is a C, and I'm glad to see that his ass is out the door. So now we are going to move to Josey Jewell, and I know a lot of people might be upset with this one and think that he deserves to be a bit higher, and I understand that argument, but to me, I just don't agree personally. Now, Josey Jewell was brought in to be the linebacker opposite of Shaq Thompson this season, and the lens that I have to view him through, unfortunately, whether it be fair or not, is he was brought in to be the replacement of Frankie Louvu, who in my opinion was the best player on our defense in this most previous last season. Frankie Louvu was the guy. Yes, he was better than Burns. Yes, he was better than Shaq. Yes, he was better than JC. He was more impactful than all of those players. One thing that Frankie was able to do was to run around like a madman with his hair on fire and always make an impact in the run game. And I'm not meaning just getting to the ball. When Frankie got to you, you did not push him backwards. You did not gain an extra 2 to 3 yards as you were falling forward and he just forced you to fall to the ground. That seems to be what happens with Josey Jewell a lot when it comes to run defense. He's able to navigate through the blocks. He's able to get to the ball, but if he gets to a running back on 3rd and 2 and he gets to them at the line of scrimmage, chances are that running back is still going to be able to fall forward for those 2 yards to get that first down. So he is just not the type of physical linebacker that we've been looking to have. I understand, up into these last couple of games where he's had that interception that he had was great a few weeks ago, but he was constantly getting burned in coverage throughout this season. I don't want for recency bias to be the only thing that we use to evaluate these players. The middle of the field has been getting chopped up time after time, and Josey Jewell was there on the spot, but he was just never able to make the play a lot of the times for me. Josey Jewell has been coming alive as of late. As I said, with DJ Wonnum being back, we've been able to see our linebackers get out there and do a little bit more, be a little bit more free flowing, and do their thing a little bit more. So we saw Josey Jewell do a bit. We saw Josey Jewell playing a bit better. But in my opinion, throughout the beginning portion of the year, Josey Jewell was struggling a lot, and he's come on lately, but I need to see him keep up this level of play that he's been at over the last 2 of 3 games for me to truly say that he was a very good addition to this defense, knowing that he was brought here to play for Ejiro Vero, as he already had familiarity with it. I need people to keep in context that Frankie Louvu was offered more money by us than the Commanders, but he just wanted to go play in Dan Quinn's defense. That is his words, not mine. Think about what that says about Ejiro Vero. I'm just saying, he got a guy that was tailor-made and played for him before. I'll leave the Vero point alone, but Josey Jewell, in my opinion, C+. Now, we have Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson has been starting at cornerback 2, opposite of J.C. Horn for, I believe, all season. I believe we traded for him before the season started. It might have been a week or two. I forget, but Mike has been here for the vast majority of the season, and he has been a solid addition. He has gotten burned quite a few times. He's gotten done in, but what cornerback hasn't? But the reason that I am going to give this acquisition at least a B was the origin of Mike Jackson actually getting to this team. Now, the Carolina Panthers traded a rookie 6th-round edge rusher linebacker and Michael Barrett to the Seattle Seahawks in exchange for Mike Jackson. And after that transaction, Michael Barrett didn't even make the team, I believe, in Seattle. He might have gotten called back to the practice squad. But essentially, we traded a 6th-round draft pick that wasn't even going to make the 53-man roster for a starting cornerback 2 that has been solid throughout the season, and he's made plays. So for that reason alone, I have to look at the Mike Jackson acquisition as at least a B, because it cost us absolutely nothing to get him, and essentially we traded a 6th-round pick for a starting cornerback, which is just, that's just great business. So shout out to Mike Jack for that. So now we got to talk about one of the other Jacksons, that being Dane Jackson. Dane Jackson was actually brought here before Mike. Mike was only brought to the team because Dane Jackson was put on IR or PUP, one of the two. He didn't play the vast majority of the beginning of the season, and ever since coming back, I can honestly say I have not seen a single good thing that Dane Jackson has done when he's been on the football field, whether it been giving up touchdowns, first downs, big plays. Dane Jackson seems to always be on the receiving end of a very impactful play by the opposing team's offense at the detriment of the Carolina Panthers at the very, very, very worst time as of late. I don't want to pile on him. I understand that he's coming back off of injury, but with the acquisition of Mike Jackson, seeing just how good Charles Smith-Wade has been since he's been playing more, since Troy Hill has went down on injury reserve, I'm over Dane Jackson. I don't care for Dane Jackson, and I don't want to see Dane Jackson on the field anymore. This acquisition, in my opinion, is an unequivocal F. So now we move back to the defensive line, the interior of that being A'Shawn Robinson, a ace run stuffer that is a journeyman at this point in his career. I am going to keep it short with A'Shawn. He has been a very, very solid piece for this team. He was brought in, and the idea of what A'Shawn Robinson was going to bring was the fact that he was going to play alongside of our Pro Bowl, All World, All Everything defensive tackle Derrick Brown, and the duo of these two guys were just going to dominate the league. I believe if Derrick Brown had not gotten hurt, A'Shawn Robinson's impact on this defense would have been felt even more. But even in the absence of Derrick Brown, A'Shawn Robinson has been a very, very, very good defender in the middle of the field. We typically do not get sacks from our defensive line, from our defensive tackle position. We do not get very much push in the middle. Although Derrick Brown is a excellent run stopper, he is not a very good pass rusher at this point in his career. So A'Shawn Robinson, although he is not to Derrick Brown's level as a run defender, has came in and kind of bridged the gap in terms of talent, and he's somewhere in the middle in terms of somebody that's able to stop the run consistently, but also has the moves and the wherewithal to get to the quarterback. And in certain situations, he's been able to do that on a defensive line that, just like Jadeveon Clowney, he's felt the impact of the injuries and the ability of the opposing team to just shift more attention to him in the middle of the line with the absence of Derrick Brown. But he's been able to play through all of that and be very, very effective on this defense. So for that reason, I give the A'Shawn Robinson acquisition a B. Now, two more. We are going to talk about David Moore. How has David Moore been for the Carolina Panthers? In my opinion, David Moore he's been a solid C+ for this reason. I believe that aside from Adam Thielen, who was on IR for a majority of the season, this offense was lacking veteran leadership in terms of pass catchers or just people in the room that could speak to being an impactful pass catcher. Although David Moore has not been the guy at any stop that he's been at, places he has been at has always had the guy. As I mentioned, he's always been where Dave has been at. So he saw DK and Tyler. He saw Godwin and Chris Evans. So he knows that what his role is to be a vet that can come in and complement the younger players or the more senior players that are just better. He is to complement those guys. So what we saw in the game prior to this last game was him step up and be exactly that for Bryce Young having his best game of the season. But when you have a guy like that is able to be familiar with the head coach and have so much trust instilled in him from the head coach, when you have the people that look at it from the perspective of, I would rather a young guy be getting those reps and, learning and progressing on the job rather than us trying to nurture the talent of somebody that is not going to be in our future plans whatsoever. I understand that thought process because David Moore is not going to help us win in 2025 or 2026. You would much rather that be a Jalen Coker, a Xavier Legette, somebody like that. But when you have a vet that is able to step up and actually be better than the young guys, when you have a team that is still prioritizing trying to win these games with no plan of tanking because the playoffs were still possible prior to this last loss, you have to understand that guys like this are valuable because they understand the moment, and the lights will never be too bright because he's been in the league for 7+ years now. He's been to the playoffs and he knows how to do that. So I understand the value that he brings to this team. I just think that there were better veterans than David Moore, and had he not been familiar with Canales, we probably would have picked up one of those more veteran receivers. Anyway, so I give that a C+. Jordan Fuller, he has been okay. If you listen to my earlier portion talking about Ejiro Evero, you know that my personal opinion is that Jordan Fuller is just simply not better than Damani Richardson, and Damani Richardson should be playing in that spot, and he would be a much better asset to the run defense. But Jordan Fuller has been okay. His first impression was getting beat deep by Rashid Shaheed, and ever since then, I mean, he's been okay, man. But to me, solid C, not the best acquisition whatsoever, man, whatsoever. So. Yeah. With that, we are going to move on now into getting about talking about these rookies. All right, and we are going to do that right after this.
I'm from the foe. You dig?